So as the U.S. approaches its final Pluto return, the most recent inflation numbers have come out, and the news will not help the Democrats win the midterms. No doubt. The inflation number is supposedly only 8.3%, but everybody knows the government numbers are a lie. The real inflation numbers from Shadow Stats, based on the way CPI was calculated in 1913 to 1990, shows that it's 17.5%, which is at a 75-year high, according to economist John Williams. Mortgage rates are now 7.3% for a 30-year home loan. The Federal Reserve vows no matter what happens to the global economy, no matter what happens to central banks, they will keep raising interest rates regardless of the collateral damage to the markets and the economy until inflation subsides to the Fed's 2% target rate. So the question at this point is, what's going to go down first, inflation or the economy? And Biden says the economy is strong as hell. That's what he said in the quote when he was eating ice cream, right? The economy is strong as hell. So we look at the direction of the country, right? That should be telling you, people think right now when you see 66.3% of the country thinks the country's on the wrong track, the problems keep piling up, particularly for the Democrats. The economy keeps tanking, and the Democrat midterm candidates are running from the press and any sort of debate for fear of being creamed. Dem campaign managers are bailing out. This has been happening over the past several days. There's more court cases are being won to curb the cheating in local counties and state counties, right, all over the country. So we're seeing a really bad economy, an underperforming president, right? Biden's approval numbers, they're claiming is 40%. But that is based on what like NPR announces. There's nothing really backing that his approval numbers are 40+%. So we're looking at like a gigantic false flag development leading to the election. And here's the reason I say that is because an historic election day, lunar eclipse, right? Here's some of the predictions from that eclipse, right? Turnout will likely be record breaking. The polling industry's credibility will be on the line. A higher turnout of women and younger voters will skew projected results. Women who identify as independent voters will be the deciding factor in the toss-up races. The Latino voter turnout will be significant. The 2020 election hangover factor will be in play in Arizona, Georgia, Nevada, and Pennsylvania. The $9.3 billion record-setting campaign spending will fuel a political polarization vortex. So we're going to see a lot of big shifts and changes. And the reason, again, has to do with the Saturn-Uranus theme. So what's going to get people to vote? They're going to have issues with Big Brother, the forced vaccinations, especially now children are going to be forced to be vaccinated from toddler up to 5 years of age in order for them to go to school, all right? They're going to kick it back to Big Brother. You're going to see the elephant in the living room. A lot of how a lot of voters are going to vote for are on issues that they're not discussing, or the state of the president or the state of leadership. It's going to be the elephant in the living room. The big elephant in the living room is the economy. Moral hazard, great rhino events, the fear of the government's lost control. We're going to see major wake-up calls where we're going to see women, especially independent women, voting Republican, right? Who normally voted Democrat, who lean Democrat, independent, nonpartisan women who tend to break last minute for Democrat. They're going to break last minute going Republican. We're going to see middle class class struggle, youth defiance vote, disturbing revelations after the fact are going to shift voters who are independent and still undecided. We're going to see all of this, drastic regulatory crackdowns, right? And we're going to see political populist extremism, right? The stripping away of decades of the two-party establishment narrative. So while all of that is happening, the cognitive dissonance, right? The cognitive dissonance, the elephant in the living room, is going to take hold here in the mainstream media. Everything is fine. There's absolutely nothing to see here. There's no recession, right? The U.S. economy is strong. Race relations, abortion is the centerpiece of what people should be focusing on, right? There's nothing to see here with all the looming crises that are in the making, that have reaching or will reach explosive breaking points between now and election day, where we're going to see ruptures, disputes, breakdowns, schism, calamities, and protracted crises. And of course, everything is fine. There's nothing to see. There's nothing to see. Actually, this is somewhere we're about right here. See? Bear market rally. Bear market rally. Everything's fine. Boom. Right? Because of what? Everything is fine because with Saturn Uranus, everything that will matter come election day will be ignored between now and election day until it does matter. And by then, it will be too late for those candidates that continue to extend and pretend and ignore the real issues. So Democrats are running on coronavirus, issues of race, climate change, right? The January 6th investigation. But more than 70% of registered voters now say the economy is Biden's fault, and it's getting worse, according to CBS News YouGov Battleground Election Tracker poll. That is not a Republican-based poll, by the way. YouGov is very, very Democrat-based. And what do they see? Economy and inflation, the elephant in the living room, right? Gun policy, voting and election issues, 65%. Immigration, whoa, immigration is a big concern. Yeah, 61%. And crime at 68%. So look, what's happening is the Democrats are pushing abortion, coronavirus, issues of race, right? Climate change, January 6th, anti-Trump, right? All that stuff. And we're now seeing a major polarization or repolarization shift occurring, especially because you see partisan registered voters who are now saying 70% Biden's policies are responsible for the current state of the economy. And he is a great deal to blame, not Putin. Now, people would say, oh, it's Putin, so we don't need to be concerned about inflation. That's not the way this poll was showing. So election day, lunar eclipse, red pill versus blue pill voters, right? You take the blue pill, the story ends, you wake up in your bed and you believe whatever you want to believe. You take the red pill and you stay in Wonderland, and I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes. So when we talk about the collective cognitive dissonance and we're talking about the blue pill, right? Blue pill voters, an example of this is when Pelosi dismisses calls within her own party for new Democrat leadership. She said, quote, there's no substitute for experience. So what we're seeing here is generational fractures are beginning to happen within the Democratic Party between the old guard and its young lawmaker Democrats who won their seats during the blue wave of 2018 and now have begun to emerge in the party and challenging the current leadership. They're challenging Nancy Pelosi on October 18. She brushed aside calls by a number of Democratic members of her caucus who are calling for new leadership, right? So the average House Democrat is 59 years old, according to the data from Fiscal Note. And the party leadership, the people on top who run the Democratic Party, DNC, Nancy Pelosi, and all those, the leadership averages at 73 years of age, right? And we have 3 octogenarians. So we're seeing generational fractures between the old guard and the new Democrats, the new guard, which emerged starting this year. So Nancy Pelosi says she's going to run for re-election in the 117th Congress. She plans on not stepping down. She believes Democrats will win, and she will maintain her position as Speaker of the House, right? While this is happening, the cognitive dissonance is increasing because Biden claims U.S. inflation will only get worse if Republicans win in November. So that's the new narrative that's being spread within the mainstream media with the latest increase in the CPI numbers, leading Biden to attempt to fumble deflection, extend, pretend, and deflect, claiming inflation will only get worse under Republicans. So to be fair, we've had inflation for a while, especially since the Federal Reserve injected trillions since the 2008 Lehman crisis, right? And extending that stimulus through the 2020 COVID crisis, right? So they basically inflated money without any federal oversight. Like they just inflated money, and tens of trillions of dollars have been injected into the economy to keep the too big to fail companies on artificial life support over the past 14 years. Perhaps the greatest impetus for inflation, for the inflation explosion, was that combined with the COVID pandemic stimulus response, which was really the definition of helicopter money. So they basically pumped in 8 trillion into the system from 2020 to 2021. And this is when you look at Republican CPI, Republicans in charge, and then not Republicans in charge, you see the CPI really going high. So this is the big issue. And what's happening now is Democrats had peaked early, right? We peaked a little early. Democrats hope turning to despair, right? And here's a quote from Mark Lungbaugh, Democratic ad maker. He's also a big player in the upper echelon for DNC. Look, man, I've been at this for 30 years, and it's always the period in late September and early October when an election starts to tilt and move. So we're at that moment, and I don't think you can look at these numbers across the country and say anything, but it looks like it's moving in the Republican direction.
To watch the full presentation and more like this on geopolitics, the economy, and world events from an archetypal and mundane astrological perspective, join the Global Transformation Astrology membership. Go to gta.williamstickevers.com. Become a GTA member today.